Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, I really wanted to do this video because I came across something that really spoke to a subject that I discussed in a previous episode. Now, in another episode, I had discussed Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, but I will not be exploring or going into that topic again in this video. But when I was doing that video, I mentioned something about not being used to your full potential in a professional environment and how eventually you feel as though you hit a plateau and that would make someone want to leave and go be independent. And I discussed that in that video. And then I came across a video where Marcellus Wiley, a former NFL player, a sports analyst, and media personality, he was giving his explanation on why he left his job at Fox Sports 1, and he basically was saying a lot of the same things that I had said in that previous video that I did. So I wanted to share that part with you guys, and I wanted to give you guys my thoughts as well because I thought it was very important. But before I do that, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. So I'm going to play the clip and then I'll be back to discuss.
Notice the shift to more podcasts, vodcast, authenticity. I was starting to get jealous. I'm sitting there at this desk talking about, hey, is Dak Prescott going to play well this year? The Cowboys going to win the East. And meanwhile, I'm watching a cat that I'm a fan of on the internet. Man, them motherfuckers suck. And I'm like, yo, that's a good point.
Right.
All I'm saying is whatever it was starting to get distant between what I was doing and what they were doing. And I was like, all right, I keep notice of that. Now, all this stuff is starting to boil up in me. Then the pandemic hit. Then Whitlock and I, we do a show together. He leaves. Nick Khan, my agent, super agent, he leaves. And so, I'm like, damn, I'm feeling kind of rudderless out here, you know? Right. But I'm still doing something that's fun, that I love, and they were paying. So I was like, yo, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I was starting to atrophy in terms of that muscle that I know that I have. So contract time comes up. First thing they say is like, yo, we going to take the show in a different direction. I was like, what's that direction? And it sounded very similar to what I just left in Sports Nation. And if y'all remember Sports Nation, it was fun, but it was light. It was topical. We go around in a circle.
So there you guys just heard Marcellus Wiley was giving his explanation as to why he left Fox Sports 1. Now, Marcellus is actually someone who I respect, and I think he's really great at what he does. Now, he's an intellectual brother, a deep thinker, but he's also humorous and entertaining. And plus, he's played in the NFL before, so that adds another layer to his analysis of the game and of sports as a whole. So, he previously worked at ESPN, and then, as you heard him say, he saw the writing on the wall, and then he made the move to FS1. And then eventually, while at FS1, he had a great show on there, Speak for Yourself, but he noticed a pattern, and plus he felt as though he was outgrowing the show, and then he made the decision to leave and then do media independently. Now, in the video that I previously did that I'm referencing, I said specifically that regardless of the company that you go to, you're going to eventually hit a point where you believe that you're being underutilized, you're not living up to your full potential, or you run into a lot of the same constraints as you did with the previous companies, and then you will eventually hit a plateau, right? So to hear him say it directly out of his mouth himself, it stood out to me for two reasons. Now, the first is that it validated the point that I was making in that video. So when I'm on this podcast, I don't speak just for the sake of speaking. I don't just say things for the sake of saying things. I want to be able to communicate my understanding and my perspectives in a way that's understandable, but is also substantiated. And that's oftentimes why I use clips or why I refer to different storylines. It's not to gossip, but rather it's to show how I process information and how I perceive them as well. And I also use it to illustrate what I take away from when I hear these things, and also what I can learn from it or what I've learned from it. And I may already have a belief or an understanding. And what I'll do is I'll use these storylines to further explain and substantiate what it is that I'm trying to say and why I believe the things that I believe. So when I do this podcast, really, it's about educating, entertaining, and it's about growing, right? Growing as a person, self-improvement, self-development. So my platform is not about gossip. It's not about tearing others down or exposing anyone or anything like that. I just believe in truth, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm a truther, if you know what I'm trying to say. But back to the original point that I was trying to make is that hearing him say that, it reinforced what I was saying in that episode. But also the second thing that I took away from it is that he had the courage to actually be honest and say what had to be said. Now, obviously, in that kind of format there, he's doing an interview, right? And he's still a professional at the end of the day. So he's going to filter some things out, and he can't be too entirely and blatantly honest. He still has to keep it professional and respectful, because you never know. You don't want to burn any bridges. But also, too, he is a serious guy, but from what I've observed, he doesn't seem like the type to be angry or to hold on grudges, or he carries any bitterness, or he gets jaded from his past experiences. You know, I'm sure he's a human being and he has dealt with his fair share of frustrations and he continues to do so. But I think he also has enough emotional intelligence to be able to compartmentalize those things and not let those feelings or those thoughts cloud his judgments or his perceptions on things. And I believe that is truly a skill that is important for people to try to learn. We can't let the burdens of the past weigh us down in our future, especially if we are people that want to make progress and move ahead. We have to take the lessons, learn from them, make mental notes, but give ourselves the gift of grace to move forward with wisdom and understanding. But in regards to Marcellus, you know, much respect to him for betting on himself and venturing out on his own. Now, I personally like the show Speak for Yourself on FS1. I thought him and Jason Whitlock, they made a good combination actually. Their chemistry was very fluid, and I thought that they had a lot of in-depth conversations when it came to sports that you never really got from any of the other shows. And I think it worked well for those two specifically to be able to pull that off, is because unlike the other shows that you see on mainstream sports channels, that those guys are actually deep and intellectual, right? So even with a guy like Jason Whitlock, I don't really agree with him on some of the stuff that he says or some of his assessments, but I cannot take anything away from his intellect or his ability to communicate effectively and get his points across. Many times he actually does make compelling points and he makes a compelling case, but you have to listen to him with an open mind. If you're going to approach everything with emotionality, then you're going to completely miss the point of what it is that he's trying to say. But overall, I thought they made for a great tandem. And I remember around the time of the pandemic, around the time when they were airing The Last Dance, Jason Whitlock in particular was speaking a lot about masculinity, the patriarchy, and how Michael Jordan was a byproduct of that environment and that culture. And then after a while, not too long after that, he just suddenly stopped being on the show. Now his exit was abrupt and it was without warning. And there's actually one content creator that I watch, and he made a good point in regards to Marcellus Wiley and his exit. And he said, or his observation was, that during Black History Month, right, all of the other commentators were doing these ads and these short commercials throughout the month, and they were discussing what Black History Month means to them and who means the most to them in this month. Now, all the other commentators, they were saying the common names that you often hear, but Marcellus Wiley was the one who actually said it was his father. And the creator that I'm referring to, he actually also mentioned that when Marcellus Wiley said this, that this must have rubbed the executives the wrong way and made them uncomfortable. Now, having heard that, combined with the explanation that Marcellus Wiley has given, I don't think that's too far-fetched of a theory. In fact, I believe that is a very credible theory, right? Because in this society today, anything that represents or even resembles masculinity or something patriarchal, it is met with some form of resistance or discomfort at the very least, right? Even just think about the mental associations that come with those words. The associations that we make when we hear the word masculine, it is typically toxic, right? When you hear the word patriarchy or patriarchal, we usually associate it with old, antiquated, outdated, and archaic. So, is it possible over time that him espousing some form of moderate, conservative talking points on Speak for Yourself, combined with the fact that he mentioned, his father during Black History Month, could this have possibly led to some tension between both sides? It's very possible. But I think that's the brilliance of Marcellus Wiley saying what he said on that show. Because he said just enough to explain himself and his thought process, but he didn't say too much. So he leaves the rest open to people to put the pieces together for themselves as they're listening. But I say all this to say the following: that there is nothing wrong with having a job, having a career, or anything like that. I'm not one of those people who's going to come on here on the internet and start shaming, denigrating, or talking down on people for having jobs or having a careers. I personally don't judge people based on what they do for a living. If you're working hard, making an honest living, then there is nothing to be ashamed about. And there is no reason to be shamed for it either, right? I'm just not built that way. I don't see things that way. I don't do it. I don't partake in it. Now, if you're someone that is working and you have this deep lingering feeling that you're not reaching your full potential, or you're running into a lot of gridlock, or you're outgrowing it, and that you want to expand your horizons, there's nothing wrong with that too. In fact, it's perfectly normal to feel that way. You just have to know and believe that it is possible and it's something that can be done. I believe with strategic planning, hard work, fiscal responsibility, discipline, delayed gratification, with consistency and persistence, those goals can be attained. Now, I believe that it just requires us having to hone in on what we want to do and figuring out how we're going to execute those things and begin exploring that journey. A lot of it is trial and error. And I don't have all the answers and I don't have everything figured out. But that's why when I do come on the show and I have different guests on it, I like to bring on the business experts from various industries, whether it be the internet space, right? Content creation, music, retail, whatever the case may be. I like to talk to these different experts from different walks of life and different fields because they can lend their experiences and they can share their journey and we can all learn from it just by listening to it. It serves as a teaching moment for everyone involved, right? And that's really the point that I wanted to make with this episode, and seeing that clip, it put all of that into perspective for me. But that's all I got for now. Thank you guys for watching the show. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You can check out my books. The link will be in the description, and you can also follow me on Instagram. Until next time.